Choristers by Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. He justice of the peace, who had received a letter from Petersburg, had set the news going that the owner of Yefremovo, Count Vladimir Ivanovich, would soon be arriving. When he would arrive there was no saying. Like a thief in the night, said Father Kuzma, a grey-headed little priest in a lilac cassock, and when he does come, the place will be crowded with the nobility and other high gentry. All the neighbors will flock here. Mind now, do your best, Alexei Alexeich. I beg you most earnestly. You need not trouble about me, said Alexei Alexeich, frowning. I know my business. If only my enemy intones the litany in the right key, he may out of sheer spite. There, ill persuade the deacon, ill persuade him. Alexei Alexeich was the sacristan of the Yefremovo church. He also taught the schoolboys' church and secular singing, for which he received 60 rubles a year from the revenues of the count's estate. The schoolboys were bound to sing in church in return for their teaching. Alexei Alexeich was a tall, thick-set man of dignified deportment, with a fat, clean-shaven face that reminded one of a cow's. His imposing figure and double chin made him look like a man occupying an important position in the secular hierarchy. Rather than a sacristan, it was strange to see him so dignified and imposing flop to the ground before the bishop, and on one occasion, after too loud a squabble with the deacon Yevlampy Avdasov, remain on his knees for 2 hours by order of the head priest of the district grandeur, was more in keeping with his figure than humiliation. On account of the rumors of the count's approaching visit, he had a choir practice every day, morning and evening. The choir practice was held at the school. It did not interfere much with the school work. During the practice, the schoolmaster Sergei Makarich set the children writing copies, while he joined the tenors as an amateur. This is how the choir practice was conducted. Alexei Alexeich would come into the schoolroom, slamming the door and blowing his nose. The trebles and altos extricated themselves noisily from the schooltables. The tenors and basses, who had been waiting for some time in the yard, came in tramping like horses. They all took their places. Alexei Alexeich drew himself up, made a sign to enforce silence, and struck a note with the tuning fork. Totalidatum domus soldo. Adagio, adagio, once more. After the Amen, there followed Lord have mercy upon us from the great litany. All this had been learned long ago, sung 1,000 times, and thoroughly digested. And it was gone through simply as a formality. It was sung indolently, unconsciously. Alexei Alexeich waved his arms calmly and chimed in, now in a tenor, now in a bass voice. It was all slow, there was nothing interesting. But before the cherubim hymn, the whole choir suddenly began blowing their noses, coughing, and zealously turning the pages of their music. The sacristan turned his back on the choir, and with a mysterious expression on his face, began tuning his violin. The preparations lasted a couple of minutes. Take your places, look at your music. Carefully, basses, don't overdo it, rather softly. Bortniansky's Cherubim Hymn No. 7 was selected. At a given signal, silence prevailed. All eyes were fastened on the music. The trebles opened their mouths. Alexei Alexeich softly lowered his arm. Piano, piano, you see, piano is written there more lightly, more lightly. When they had to sing piano, an expression of benevolence and amiability overspread Alexei Alexeich's face, as though he was dreaming of a dainty morsel. Forte, forte, hold it. And when they had to sing forte, the sacristan's fat face expressed alarm and even horror. The cherubim hymn was sung well, so well, that the schoolchildren abandoned their copies and fell to watching the movements of Alexei Alexeich. People stood under the windows. The schoolwatchman Vasily came in wearing an apron and carrying a dinner knife in his hand, and stood listening. Father Kuzma, with an anxious face, appeared suddenly, as though he had sprung from out of the earth. After let us lay aside all earthly cares, Alexei Alexeich wiped the sweat off his brow and went up to Father Kuzma in excitement. It puzzles me, Father Kuzma, he said, shrugging his shoulders. Why is it that the Russian people have no understanding? It puzzles me, may the Lord chastise me, such an uncultured people, that you really cannot tell whether they have a windpipe in their throats or some other sort of internal arrangement. Were you choking? Or what, he asked, addressing the bass Gennady Semichov, the innkeeper's brother. Why, What is your voice like? It rattles like a saucepan. I bet you were boozing yesterday. That's what it is. Your breath smells like a tavern each. You are a clodhopper, brother. You are a lout. How can you be a chorister if you keep company with peasants in the tavern? You are an ass, brother. It's a sin, brother, muttered Father Kuzma. God sees everything through and through. That's why you have no idea of singing, because you care more for vodka than for godliness, you fool. Don't work yourself up, said Father Kuzma. Don't be cross, I will persuade him. Father Kuzma went up to Gennady Semichov and began persuading him. What do you do it for? Try and put your mind to it. A man who sings ought to restrain himself, because his throat is tender. Gennady scratched his neck and looked sideways towards the window, as though the words did not apply to him. After the cherubim hymn they sang the creed. Then it is meet and right they sang smoothly and with feeling, and so right on to Our Father. To my mind, Father Kuzma, said the sacristan, the old Our Father is better than the modern. That's what we ought to sing before the count. No, sing the modern one, for the count hears nothing but modern music. When he goes to Mass in Petersburg or Moscow, in the churches there, I imagine, there's very different sort of music there, brother. After Our Father, there was again a great blowing of noses, coughing, and turning over of pages. The most difficult part of the performance came next. The concert. Alexei Alexeich was practicing two pieces, Who is the God of Glory and Universal Praise. Whichever the choir learned best would be sung before the count. During the concert, the sacristan rose to a pitch of enthusiasm. The expression of benevolence was continually alternating with one of alarm. Forte, he muttered andante, let yourselves go sing, you image tenors. You don't bring it off, tatatidatum. Sol si sol, I tell you, you blockhead, glory basses glow. Oh, right. His bow traveled over the heads and shoulders of the erring trebles, and altos. His left hand was continually pulling the ears of the young singers. On one occasion, carried away by his feelings, he flipped the bass Gennady under the chin with his bent thumb, but the choristers were not moved to tears or to anger at his blows. They realized the full gravity of their task. After the concert came a minute of silence. Alexei Alexeich, red, perspiring, and exhausted, sat down on the windowsill and turned upon the company lustreless, wearied, but triumphant eyes. In the listening crowd, he observed to his immense annoyance the deacon Avdasov. The deacon, a tall, thick-set man with a red, pockmarked face and straw in his hair, stood leaning against the stove and grinning contemptuously. That's right, sing away, perform your music, he muttered in a deep bass. Much the count will care for your singing. He doesn't care whether you sing with music or without, for he is an atheist. Father Kuzma looked round in a scared way and twiddled his fingers. Come, he muttered, hush, deacon, I beg. After the concert, they sang May Our Lips Be Filled with Praise, and the choir practice was over. The choir broke up to reassemble in the evening for another practice, and so it went on every day. 1 month passed, and then a second. The steward, too, had by then received a notice that the count would soon be coming at last. The dusty sunblinds were taken off the windows of the big house, and Yefremuvo heard the strains of the broken-down autoftune piano. Father Kuzma was pining, though he could not himself have said why or whether it was from delight or alarm. The deacon went about grinning. The following Saturday evening Father Kuzma went to the sacristan's lodgings. His face was pale, his shoulders drooped, the lilac of his cassock looked faded. I have just been at His Excellency's, he said to the sacristan, stammering. He is a cultivated gentleman with refined ideas. But it's mortifying, brother, at what o'clock, your Excellency, do you desire us to ring for Mass tomorrow? And he said, as you think best, only couldn't it be as short and quick as possible without a choir? Without a choir, do you understand, without a choir? Alexei Alexeich turned crimson. He would rather have spent 2 hours on his knees again than have heard those words. He did not sleep all night. He was not so much mortified at the waste of his labors as at the fact that the deacon would give him no peace now with his jeers. The deacon was delighted at his discomfiture. Next day, all through the service, he was casting disdainful glances towards the choir, where Alexei Alexeich was booming responses in solitude, When he passed by the choir with the censer, he muttered, "Perform your music, do your utmost. The count will give a 10-ruble note to the choir." After the service, the sacristan went home crushed and ill with mortification. At the gate, he was overtaken by the red-faced deacon. "Stop a minute, Alyosha," said the deacon. "Stop a minute, silly, don't be cross. You are not the only one. I am in for it too." Immediately after the Mass, Father Kuzma went up to the count and asked, "And what did you think of the deacon's voice, Your Excellency? He has a deep bass, hasn't he?" And the count, "Oh, you know what he answered by way of compliment. Anyone can bawl," he said. "A man's voice is not as important as his brains. A learned gentleman from Petersburg, an atheist, is an atheist. And that's all about it. Come, brother in misfortune, let us go and have a drop to drown our troubles." And the enemies went out of the gate arm in arm.